Ancient Roots, Modern Rivalry, a tale of two Asian giants. This is a story that spans millennia, tracing the evolution of two of the world's oldest civilizations. For centuries, China and India stood as the twin pillars of Asian civilization, each with its own unique contributions to art, science, and philosophy. Connected by the Silk Road, these ancient empires exchanged goods, ideas, and culture, shaping the destiny of the continent. Silk, spices, and precious stones flowed along these routes, enriching both lands. However, beneath this veneer of cooperation lay a simmering rivalry, rooted in geography, ambition, and the pursuit of power. The towering Himalayas served as both a bridge and a barrier, fostering both connection and conflict. Today, as China and India emerge as global players, their ancient rivalry has taken on a new urgency, with profound implications for the future of Asia and the world. Their economic and military might are reshaping global dynamics. China, with its centralized state and Confucian traditions, has long sought order and stability within its borders and influence beyond them. The teachings of Confucius emphasized hierarchy and harmony, principles that continue to influence Chinese governance. From the Great Wall to the voyages of Zheng He, China projected its power across land and sea. These monumental efforts were not just about defense or exploration, but about asserting dominance and securing trade routes. India, on the other hand, was a land of diverse kingdoms and a flourishing of spirituality and philosophy. The subcontinent was a melting pot of cultures where different dynasties and religions coexisted and thrived. Its influence spread through trade networks and the transmission of Buddhism, Hinduism, and other belief systems. Indian monks and traders carried their beliefs far and wide, leaving a lasting impact on Asia. The arrival of European colonialism in the 18th century disrupted this ancient balance of power. The British, French, and other colonial powers carved up the continent, exploiting its resources and people. Both China and India succumbed to Western domination, their economies exploited, and their societies transformed. The Opium Wars and the British Raj left deep scars that would take decades to heal. This shared experience of humiliation and exploitation would fuel their respective struggles for independence in the 20th century. Leaders like Gandhi and Sun Yat-sen inspired their people to rise against colonial rule. However, the paths they chose after independence would set the stage for their modern rivalry. While both nations sought to rebuild, their visions for the future diverged significantly. China, under Mao Zedong, embarked on a radical experiment in communism, seeking to transform its agrarian society into an industrial powerhouse. The Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution were tumultuous periods that reshaped Chinese society. India, led by Jawaharlal Nehru, opted for a democratic socialist model, emphasizing self-reliance and a mixed economy. Nehru's vision was one of a secular democratic nation that balanced tradition with modernity. These contrasting approaches would have far-reaching consequences for their economic development and geopolitical trajectories. Today, China and India stand as two of the world's largest economies, each with its own strengths and challenges, continuing their age-old dance of rivalry and cooperation. Diverging paths, post-colonial strategies of China and India. The end of colonial rule in the mid-20th century marked a significant turning point for both China and India, two of the world's oldest civilizations. Each nation, deeply scarred by the experience of subjugation and foreign domination, yearned to reclaim its rightful place on the world stage and restore its national pride. Yet their chosen paths to achieving this ambitious goal diverged sharply, reflecting their unique historical contexts and ideological leanings. China, under the iron grip of Mao Zedong, embarked on a tumultuous journey of communist revolution, seeking to reshape its society from the ground up. The Great Leap Forward, with its disastrous collectivization policies, aimed to rapidly transform China from an agrarian society into an industrial powerhouse, but it led to widespread famine and suffering. The Cultural Revolution, a decade of intense social and political upheaval, aimed to purge China of capitalist and traditional elements, further entrenching Mao's vision of a classless society. India, in contrast, chose the path of democracy and a mixed economy, seeking to balance growth with social justice. Led by Jawaharlal Nehru, India adopted a socialist model, emphasizing self-reliance and state-led industrialization, aiming to lift millions out of poverty and build a modern nation. Nehru, a staunch advocate of non-alignment during the Cold War, sought to carve out an independent path for India on the global stage, avoiding entanglement in the superpower rivalry. This approach, while prioritizing social justice and national unity, also resulted in bureaucratic hurdles and slow economic growth, as the state struggled to manage the vast and diverse country. These contrasting approaches reflected not only ideological differences, but also the distinct historical experiences and cultural contexts of the two nations. China's long history of centralized rule and its experience of national humiliation at the hands of foreign powers led to a more authoritarian and state-driven model, seeking to restore its sovereignty and strength. India's diverse society, its legacy of British parliamentary democracy, and its emphasis on consensus building, favored a more pluralistic and democratic approach, aiming to accommodate its myriad ethnic, linguistic, and religious groups. These early choices would have a lasting impact on the trajectory of both nations, shaping their political, economic, and social landscapes for decades to come. China's centralized planning, while initially resulting in economic hardship and social turmoil, would eventually pave the way for its remarkable economic transformation, especially with the market reforms of the 1980s. India's democratic institutions, though sometimes seen as an impediment to rapid growth, would prove to be a source of resilience and stability in the long run, fostering a vibrant civil society and entrepreneurial spirit. As the 20th century drew to a close, the stage was set for a new era of competition and cooperation between these two Asian giants, each with its own unique strengths and challenges. China's Great Leap, the transformation of a nation. The year 1978 marked a watershed moment in China's history, a turning point that would set the stage for unprecedented change. Deng Xiaoping, emerging as the paramount leader after Mao's death, initiated a series of economic reforms that would transform China from a poor, isolated nation into a global economic powerhouse. His vision was clear: to modernize China and improve the living standards of its people. Deng's famous dictum, "To get rich is glorious," unleashed a wave of entrepreneurial energy that had been suppressed for decades. Small businesses began to flourish, and the spirit of innovation took root. The reforms began with the dismantling of collectivized agriculture and the introduction of the household responsibility system. This policy allowed farmers to keep surplus produce after meeting state quotas. Farmers were given greater autonomy and incentives to produce, leading to a surge in agricultural output. This newfound freedom and motivation significantly boosted productivity and rural incomes. This initial success paved the way for further reforms, including opening up to foreign investment, establishing special economic zones, and gradually dismantling the centrally planned economy. These zones became testing grounds for market-oriented policies. China's embrace of market forces, combined with its vast labor pool and disciplined workforce, created an economic juggernaut. The country rapidly industrialized, with factories and industries sprouting up across the landscape. Foreign investment poured in, attracted by low wages and access to a rapidly growing market. International companies saw China as a land of opportunity, leading to a boom in joint ventures and partnerships. Manufacturing industries mushroomed, turning China into the world's factory. The production of goods on a massive scale became the hallmark of China's economic strategy. Cities like Shenzhen, once sleepy fishing villages, were transformed into sprawling megacities, monuments to China's economic miracle. These urban centers became symbols of rapid development and modernization. This unprecedented economic transformation had a profound impact on Chinese society. Urbanization accelerated, and millions of people moved to cities in search of better opportunities. Hundreds of millions of people were lifted out of poverty. The standard of living improved dramatically, with access to better education, healthcare, and housing. A new middle class emerged, eager to embrace consumerism and enjoy the fruits of their newfound prosperity. Shopping malls, restaurants, and entertainment venues flourished, reflecting the changing lifestyle. This economic dynamism, however, came at a cost. Rapid industrialization led to severe environmental issues, including air and water pollution, which became major concerns for the government and citizens alike. Income inequality widened, environmental degradation became rampant, and social unrest simmered beneath the surface. The gap between the rich and the poor grew, leading to tensions and calls for more equitable growth. India awakens, embracing liberalization and technology. While China was undergoing its dramatic transformation, India remained shackled by its socialist policies and bureaucratic inertia. By the late 1980s, India faced an economic crisis, prompting a wave of reforms in 1991 that would unleash its own economic potential. Led by Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao and Finance Minister Manmohan Singh, India embarked on a path of liberalization, privatization, and globalization. The reforms dismantled the license Raj, a complex system of permits and regulations that had stifled private enterprise. Tariffs were reduced, foreign investment was encouraged, and state-owned enterprises were privatized. These measures, though initially met with resistance, gradually opened up the Indian economy and unleashed the forces of competition. India's economic transformation, unlike China's manufacturing-led growth, was driven by the services sector, particularly information technology. The rise of the IT industry, fueled by a vast pool of skilled engineers and English-speaking professionals, transformed India into a global back-office and software development hub. Cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Pune became synonymous with India's tech boom, attracting multinational companies and creating a new generation of entrepreneurs. India's economic liberalization, however, was not without its challenges. Poverty and inequality remained persistent problems. Infrastructure bottlenecks and bureaucratic hurdles continued to impede growth. Nevertheless, India's embrace of market forces and its growing integration into the global economy had set it on a path of sustained economic expansion.